It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Divas That Care. My name is Candace Gish. If this is your very first time tuning into the Divas That Care, a huge welcome. We've been doing this now for over 13 years. We have a variety of amazing hosts and guests. We are listened to in over 30 countries around the world, and we're having the time of our lives. You know, this has been so much fun. I'm just so grateful for all of our amazing guests that have been participating with the Divas That Care, and we're just so excited when new people come and join us. So today I have an extremely amazing woman that I've been wanting to get onto the program for quite a while now. She's going to be doing a lot of stuff with the Divas That Care network, and we're excited to have her. So welcome to the show, Sabine Mathuro. I'm so excited to have you today.
Candace, is great. Actually, Sabina is the correct version of the name because it is actually an Austrian name. I'm from Austria originally, so you did very well here.
Oh, that's wonderful. I always feel bad if I mess up somebody's name because I understand what it's like because I have a Dutch last name. My maiden name is actually Dutch, so a lot of people had a hard time pronouncing it. So I love it, and so we're so happy to have you.
I'm so happy to be here as well. So happy to be able to share some wisdom and inspiration with your audience.
Oh, excellent. Would you mind kind of introducing yourself to our listeners today? Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what got you into what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay, cool. I'll try to make it as quick as possible. But I mean, you've heard I'm actually from Austria, but I live in the UK now, and it's been like 20 odd years. I've got two teenage children by now, and it's actually my journey is probably how many others actually started as well. I was never really an entrepreneur. I was actually working in a corporate job, 9 to 5, but I was really stressed out. I was a senior manager at different companies and just sort of flying around 9 to 5. Not even more than that, actually, just Monday to Friday. I was working, ridiculous amounts of hours, and I just couldn't bear it anymore. Once I had the kids, that was it for me, and I decided to step into entrepreneurship, which I found pretty challenging because I thought I had it all, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to this. So this is where I am now. I had to learn a lot. I made a lot of mistakes, but my bread and butter was always around sort of project management and getting processes into place. And this is what I found that that's my forte, that I can actually not only do this for myself. I had to obviously go and do this because I was preaching it to others. And it's really about simplifying business and simplifying and sort of stripping it down and get back to your core. That's really what my purpose and my mission is right now, because we are, we're finding there's so much information out there. I mean, people are absolutely overwhelmed. You could and should do so many things, but really, do we? That's the big question for me, Candace.
I love that. Thank you. This is going to be so much fun. And what do you mean by simplifying? A lot of people have different ideas on what that means. So to you, what is simplifying the system?
Yeah. So I'll tell you a bit more about my story in terms of how I grew my business. So basically I started with one thing, then I had another thing, and I have a second business idea and a third and one other project here. And I would never complete those things. I mean, that's the visionary in ourselves. And that's the thing. It's like, why don't we just step back and say, actually, one of the things that we most enjoy doing, and actually it's not really aligned with who we are and how we want to run our business or be in our lives, but we just started it and we're like, okay, at the time it felt like a good idea, but then we're scared to actually closing these projects off and say, actually, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to stop this. And like this year for me was a big simplification year myself, and it's great timing to actually talk about this because a lot of people are reflecting back on their year and looking at the year ahead as well, where I realized some collaborations didn't work for me, and and new ones emerged that were more aligned with who I really truly wanted to be. And I came back to my core. So I stripped down like the number of offers and services and programs that I have. And I also crystallized who I really want to work with, so that I only attract the people that are truly aligned with who I am, as a coach consultant. And not only that, but also they're aligned with their values. So in essence, we pick the people that we want to work with. Why are we taking on things, that don't feel good? And that's where the simplification comes in. So there's many different aspects of simplification, but it's really about, what do you want to do? How do you want to go through your life, through your business, and then just focus on a few things that you are going to do really, really well.
I really like that. How hard is it to get people to think about that, to go back to that core, like you're mentioning? Is that something that people are willing to do, or is it something that they struggle with?
It's definitely not easy, because if it was easy, then everyone would be living a super aligned life. And I'm seeing it over and over again, that people are actually confused around what they want, because there's things that they think they should be doing, and there's expectations from others that they should be doing things in certain ways. So and you might say, maybe we should be more selfish by really thinking through this and say, actually, no, this is how I want to live my life. So I get people to think this through, and I guess it's a little bit more easy to actually convince them to think it through once they've gone through a period of challenges in their life. Once they've seen things haven't worked, then there's always going to be the first question, well, why have things not worked? And we always come back to that core, because they had projects, they did things that weren't aligned, and they just lost the fun in their lives and in their businesses. And and then they're willing to actually have a look into this in more detail and in more depth.
Well, and it makes them happier, isn't it? I think we've spent so many years just doing the things that we thought we had to do, and we weren't living for ourselves. And I saw a lot of people that were starting to get more depressed. They just couldn't figure out what was going on, and they weren't authentic anymore. They weren't who they were supposed to be. And when they started doing what you're saying, is finding that, weed out the things that weren't making them happy and that they thought they had to add, but they realized they didn't. Things happened. I think their businesses started thriving, and as a person, they started thriving also.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you take a lot of weight off your shoulder. That overwhelm just goes, and you feel more at ease, really. That's what we want to feel, right? Yes, there's so many things that we could and should do, and that's the visionary within ourselves. It's just natural. We're passionate about so many different things, and that can really get us into some sort of rough arenas. We can actually bring ourselves into these kind of challenging scenarios, let's say, because we're doing it to ourselves, right?
Yeah. So when somebody approaches you and they want to work with you, what kind of, to step me through this step by step on how you work with them?
Actually, this year I was working with only a very handful, sort of few people who want to completely automate their business. Because I'm finding it over and over again that entrepreneurs are doing 80% marketing and then only 20% of paid work, which is very frustrating, especially if you are very passionate around what you do. So it's really about taking that heavy lifting from them and creating a system that works over and over again. That's really what I've been focusing on this year. However, next year I'm going to open up something that's a bit more accessible to those, because obviously that was quite heavy investment for those who really wanted that one-to-one support. I'll still be continuing this support, but I'm also going to open more of a community where they'll get this insight around simplification, getting good at one thing, and also how can you put some of the things that you need in business on autopilot. And it's just there. It's a
I
system that
love
helps
that.
you read, your clients and do some of the heavy lifting.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, that's amazing. I love the idea of community. I think you understand that about me. Mine has always been about community and collaboration. So can a lot of people join this if they're not necessarily in your area? So is this kind of an event, something you're going to be doing for global audiences?
Yes, absolutely. It's for global audiences, specifically for female audiences. And actually, just before this podcast, I was just mapping out exactly what it will look like, because I don't just want it to be like any other community, because we've got loads of communities out there. So I'm really thinking through what will make it stick, right? What will make it, the transformations work? Do you know what I mean?
I
And for the
do.
different components in the community, like one of the components is, for example, networking, because we can be really lonely working from home as entrepreneurs. So we need to connect and collaborate and help each other and getting some insights. I don't know why people just sort of writing their sales page and never ever ask any of their fellow coaches, could you have a quick look over it? Does it actually resonate? I do this all the time. It's just simple things like that. To have a community around that will help you inspire, but obviously we'll have experts in there as well that will help do this kind of stuff, but just utilizing each other a bit more as well. And even when it comes to complementary services, why not refer each other?
Yeah, I think that that's what we need to do is help one another out, collaborate, refer one another. And I think that's how we've always helped each other. With the Divas That Care, we've always been about that, is supporting one another. And I think what you're doing is absolutely extraordinary. When are you looking at getting your group together?
Yeah, I'm actually, it's a couple of weeks away. It's going to be launched early January 2024. So
Exciting.
whenever you listen to it, hopefully it'll be there already. I mean, there'll be a training vault. There will be life skill mastery sessions, obviously Q&As. We'll have monthly focused implementation sprints. That's where the implementation comes in, and expert panel roundtable. So Candace, I'd love you to have you in as well.
I would love
Where the
that.
collaboration comes in, right? And of course, networking events where we hop on Zoom. Perhaps if you're, in around London, come and join us for a live event as well. The world is your oyster, right? It's really building this up, and even I'm gonna ask the members what they want, right? Because that's there, there's not many memberships out there where the member has a voice and will bring in the things that they need.
That is so true. And I like that idea. I like the idea of having a membership. So like share with our listeners a little bit more about that. What would be involved to be a member of this group?
Yeah, so it's actually called the Limitless Coach Success Hub, right? That's what it is. And it will start off with what I just said in terms of a training vault, in terms of how you can grow your business to start off with. But during the year, I will actually create some more resources around scaling and about, for example, how to run ads and really how to automate some of the things, evergreen webinars. And I will build up also a membership option, which people can upgrade into this, which will be how to get actually corporate contracts, because that's another business I run. I actually work with corporates as well. So there's so many opportunities for us, sort of solopreneurs to actually break into corporates. And there will be also a little area there around an impactful coach. How are you, obviously for those who are coaches and consultants or even course creators, how do you create impactful delivery? Not a lot of memberships actually talk about all of these different things. And I'm bringing it together because I've been teaching all of these things for the past 10 years in different high level masterminds, but I just really want to bring my best work to the table. And I'm going to leave a link, Candace, somewhere perhaps below the podcast with I'll get you a special discount code as well for the listeners, where they can just come in, check out the membership either on a monthly basis or a quarterly or a yearly upfront, where you'll then get amazing bonuses from me as well.
Ooh, I love that. Thank you so much. I should ask you, what is your website so our listeners can go and check that out?
Yeah, so it will be limitlesscoachsuccesshub.com.
What other tips, tools can you leave our listeners? I know that you and I are going to be collaborating on a lot of things in 2024, but one of the things I want to do with our listeners is kind of leave them some tips through getting them ready for perhaps through the winter season, through the Christmas season. A lot of people are starting to do some goal setting and trying to figure out what they're wanting to do in next year. So is there any tips, things that you can maybe share with our listeners to help them with that process?
Yes, absolutely. Very, very happy to. So I want to do this a bit differently as to you know how we do the normal goal setting, right? And then we're like, come to January, we give up. So let's do it a bit differently. So I would say there are 4 key elements, right? It's almost like 4 key archetypes, I would say, in terms of how we should break down our goal setting. Because if you think about it, we've got the visionary, right? The visionary, I already talked about this, is the entrepreneur within ourselves, and the visionary loves to dream. So the first thing we need to do is actually let that visionary dream. What's next year going to bring? But we also want to reflect first and foremost and celebrate what we've achieved this year, because quite often we say, oh yeah, not much happened this year. But really think about it. Even if it's the smallest step forward, write it down, celebrate it, be grateful for the people around you. Who are the people who are on this journey with you? Who could you lean on? Who was there for support, for any sort of help? Really celebrate and reflect, and then let that visionary dream. So really ask yourself question, what do I really desire to create next year? And again, bring in that simplification. What is it exactly? What are my priorities? How do I want to spend an ideal day in next year? How do I really want to spend a day? You probably don't want to be rushed and hustling until 10 o'clock in the evening and doing work on the weekends, right? You might want to write these things down. So there's your visionary, and then you've got your organizer or your manager. So how do you manage your tasks? How do you create the space? So think about, how do you create the space to actually bring all this growth into your day? If you're fully booked out every single hour of the day, it's going to be really, really hard to actually really implement some of the dreams that you've got there, the opportunities that the visionary has seen. So that's the archetype number 2, is the manager or the organizer. Archetype number 3 is actually the lover. So think about it. You started this business because you had a purpose, because you loved something, because you've got this gift. How are you going to bring this love and this energy into your business? Because as I was saying before, quite often we can lose our vision, we can lose the love for our business. What's going to get you up every single day? Why are you doing this? That's going to help you to actually achieve the goals that you set out for yourself. And then the last archetype is the gatherer or the hunter, basically. So think about, how am I going to achieve things? How am I going to sell my programs? How am I going to show up every single day? With what energy? With what belief? With what mindset? And I think these 4 archetypes, it was really interesting to actually really think through these. And it's a different way to actually set your goals. And of course, you'll have your milestones and things like that. But it'll actually let you dream much bigger in a much more powerful way, so that you will actually think back, because goal setting is not just a one-off thing. It's something that we need to review, if not daily, at least weekly, to see whether we're on track. And if we're not on track, why not? And just reconnect to the love that that we had for our business when we started in the first place. Yeah.
It was fantastic. Thank you so much. I love it. It was wonderful. I really appreciate you coming and chatting with all of our listeners today. I am so excited to be welcoming you to our Diva family, and I'm so looking forward to having you back on in the future.
I'm so thankful, grateful. That's one of the things I'm grateful for this year, to have actually connected with you and to bring more inspiration and motivation into the world. That's all we can do, right? It's creating ripple effects.
That's exactly what we do. And it is wonderful because the more I do these podcasts, after 13 years of doing them, I still get excited each and every time because I know that I'm going to learn stuff and I'm going to collaborate with amazing women like you. So I am so grateful to get to know you.
Thank you. Likewise, Candice. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. And I want to thank all of my amazing listeners that have been into us for all these years. We're so grateful. We're coming into the Christmas season and we're very grateful to each and every one of you. I do want to let each and every one of you know that I do have a new project that I have just completed. It's called the Podcast Journal. So this is a book that is now available on Amazon, and you can now keep track of all of your favorite podcast episodes, hosts, topics in a variety of different things, from nonfiction to fiction. And it's a great way to remember the important takeaways of your own life. We have episode trackers, weekly and monthly calendars. The journal, it's a complete journal for you to keep track of all the amazing podcasts, not only on the Divas That Care network, but all the other podcasts out there. So, if you're looking for any last minute Christmas ideas, make sure you go and check that out. It's called the Podcast Journal and it's available on Amazon. All right, everyone. I hope that each and every one of you has an amazing day and that you remember to do something kind. Until next time, everyone.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.